something kind of funny, and I was thinking, you know, when I've gone to special events, special conferences with our daughter, she's in Florida, and some of those ladies come from big churches and big speakers, international speakers, and I always look at their shoes, and I look at their pants, and I look at their shirts, and anyway, and so I'm thinking, okay, so I got my boots from Martin's, and I got my sweater from Country Card, and my shirt from Country Card, and what else? That's pretty well it. My watch from my husband. And I got my looks from my mom and dad. But you know, sometimes we just do, right? We just see where did she get that? And I wonder what I'd like to get one of those. But anyway, so we're all very much alike rather than different, right? We all have those things. We like to kind of know what's going on. And so in this precious time of being together with you ladies, it seems that we are the ones that kind of get our household in order, and we're the ones that you know, get the kids out to school in the morning, and we're just multitask people. And I'm reminded of how many's done some Christmas shopping? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, that's good, because I haven't got any. But according to the Alaska Fish and Game Association in Alaska, that it was female reindeers, not male reindeers, that supposedly was the one that drew Santa's sleigh. Now, we all believe in Santa. I'm sure many of us have grown way past that. But apparently the female antlers do not come off until the spring. They have them all winter. So when we see that team of reindeer, you know how we see them going across the sky, it's women carrying that big man and working all night, and they don't get lost. They don't get lost. So we're capable of a lot, girls, and sometimes though things get heavy. They get heavy because of the load that we sometimes carry. I was on a plane from, I guess it was Toronto, to Edmonton in the spring, and Stephanie had just asked me to share, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And so I just got my pen. It was like 2 in the morning, and so I just started penning some things. And I love to go see my kids. Our son's in the West and our daughter's in Florida. They're all wonderful places to visit. But no matter where they were, I would go. I would go. If they were in Alaska, in England, wherever it would be, right? As moms, that's just the way it is. And so I was on my way, and the Lord just dropped into my heart and my spirit something that's very precious to me, and I'm sure it is to all of you. It was my mother, and how she had been the one that seemingly was very instrumental in where I am today. We need to realize that as women, as mothers, as sisters, and as nieces, and all the titles that we have, that we have a great influence. My mother was not, she was not an outspoken person. If you met her, you would wonder if she could speak. But she was a meek person, but meekness is not weakness. And my mom was the youngest in a family of 4 or 5, I guess it was. Her sisters were teachers, and Mom herself wanted to be a teacher. My dad, on the other hand, was a Scotsman, and came from Scotland, and after 4 years of being here in Canada, his father died, so at the age of 13, he took on the role of farming and left school, and that's just what you did then, right? That's just what you did. So Mom wanted to go to normal school. She had her entrance papers and all that. It was all in line, and her father intercepted that because he didn't want the money that it took to go to normal school to be wasted, because she would probably just get married and have kids. And so that's exactly what she did. She didn't attend normal school, but she did get married, and she had children, and she had 9 children. And 2 of them passed at infancy, and my brother Brian, which was 2 years older than I was, he was, during birth, there was complications, and my brother Brian never walked steadily, or talked, or ever was trained, potty trained. And I remember looking after Brian. I remember laying on the couch, and because Mom was busy with a lot of things, Dad was a farmer, and excuse me. And so I remember laying on the couch and stroking his hair, because he just needed to be comforted because Mom was busy. And I think about that part of my life, how that started being my compassion, or my love for people that are different. We have a special care home. We have 9 men, if you can believe it. We have 9 men, and I enjoy every minute of it. And I think so much of that is because of Brian, right? So the things in our life that we seem to, it's just the way our family was, it's just the way it happened. God uses that and makes something beautiful out of that. And we all loved him, and we all cared for him, and I think that's maybe why most of us are in, love people, and especially the furthest one away, and the one that needs it the most. And my mom was like that. I was brought up in I was second youngest, and so my life was fairly normal. I don't know, we all think our life is normal. But at a young age, my dad went to special meetings. Howard McLean, maybe some of you know him. And in Dad's bib overalls, he went to the altar and gave his heart to the Lord. And then he came home, and my mom followed. And in January of that year, they cut the ice, and Mom was baptized. And that was the beginning of our Christian heritage. And Dad served the Lord, was the Sunday school superintendent. Just many, many things that they accomplished. But we were poor. We were like poor. But the Lord provided in many ways. And so Dad serving the Lord. And then one time he was out, potato farming. And there was another man that went to church and had given his heart to the Lord at the same time. And so Dad, you need support. You need support. And you look to other people for that support. And so he got in the truck, the cab of this truck one day, and this gentleman had given his heart to the Lord, and there was a thing of rum, a quart of rum. And he realized that he wasn't walking the walk. This other gentleman wasn't walking the walk. And it discouraged Dad. And from that time on, Dad had a hard time just staying committed to the Lord. And it went from that to worse, and eventually Dad had a bad alcoholic problem, and the years unraveled for Dad, and they were difficult years. My mom, on the other hand, kept the faith. She kept the faith. And I remember going to school, and she'd be reading the Bible and praying as we were getting ready, and I'm like, Mom, I'm not listening. Can I just focus on what I'm doing here? Do you have kids that do that, you guys? And but she was that was that teacher part of her that wanted to get what she knew and understood to be truth into our lives, and that it would take root and that it would grow, and it did. It did. Many of my brothers and sisters are testament to that. So that was fine. Dad went down his wayward way, and Mom kept the faith, but her health was affected by that. But at the age of 13, we moved to Ontario, left the farm, left the difficult life that Dad seemed to be having, and we went to Ontario. And so at the age of 13, I moved from a farm to a town, and the town was about 360 people. It was Courtright, Ontario. I don't know if anybody knows where Courtright, Ontario is. And so Dad went to work for Ontario Hydro, And he was there a short time, and a 5-pound shackle hit him on the shoulder and split his hard hat. And so we were left with a father that was very injured, and if you know anything about compensation, they are cruel when it comes to making a diagnosis. And Daddy was probably, and Mom, because Mom was the one that was doing the work, because Dad was injured and he lay drunk most of the time because of that injury. And so the injury caused him to be grand mal epileptic, if you know what that is. And I remember being downstairs in our bedroom downstairs in Cortland, Ontario, and I remember we lived beside a train track, and Dad would, it seemed to start maybe the shaking of the house or whatever, and it would bring on these seizures. And I remember Dad's feet hitting the floor above us, and just how scared I was because Daddy was in another grand mal epileptic. But Mama kept the faith during that time, and there was times that we were left, my sister and I, we were left at home in Cortland, Ontario, but it was a small little community. We skipped on the sidewalks and all that, but Mom would go to the hotel to make sure that Daddy got home safe because he was drunk. And we had friends there, but it opened the door. I was 13, and we went to youth across the road, and there was a girl there, Pat Bailey was her name, and I think we all like to hang with people that are somewhat whatever, cool. And I remember talking to Pat, and like, oh, this is going to be good. I have a Christian friend to go to school with. And it wasn't too long after that, I went to a large high school, and I don't know, there was 4,000 or something like that. And I seen Pat in the smoking area at the front of the school. And somewhere, I'm like, I knew that she couldn't live a Christian walk and be popular and be cool. And so it seemed to me that that day, it seemed that I settled for something less because of that. And so my life began to spiral out of control. And I remember spending a lot of time just on the street, And so then you meet people. I remember one time I went all the way over to the bowling alley, and I knew I shouldn't be there because there was a rough crowd hung around there. This is in Cortland, Ontario. And my mom came and got me. She did not want me hanging around bowling alley. And so then, I wanted to sneak away and go to the dances because that's what the kids were doing. And so I gradually just, the things that connected me to home base, to a Christian foundation, was beginning to be eroded. And so from that, came the dances and what goes on at dances and the drinking and the partying and all of that. And I was so detached from my roots that I didn't know who I was, actually. I began to not know who I was, and I didn't even care, because I was on this destructive path. I had given my heart to the Lord when I was 12 here in New Brunswick before we went to Ontario in the Billy Graham crusade on television. And I remember I wrote and I got my first Bible, and I was so thrilled. I don't know, we should have probably all had a Bible, but they cost money, and there wasn't money. And so in saying all that, I had given my heart to the Lord, but it was far, way back there. And so time evolved, and I was involved with drugs and alcohol, premarital sex, all that goes with that kind of a lifestyle, and all the scars and all the things that come from that lifestyle. And I remember this gentleman that I was engaged to, he was violent, and wasn't at first, of course, because it never starts out like that. But he was violent, and I remember thinking, this is my lot. This is my lot. And so in 1974, I turned 21 that year, and my sister and her husband was married here in New Brunswick, so I came down, I flew down, And I remember being at the airport, and when we were going back, I had a wonderful time with my family. My family loved me. And I knew that I could not let them see any weakness, because when you show weakness, you become, people can speak into your life, right? You don't want anybody speaking into your life when you are where you are. And so I was going to the airport, and Mom was there, and the last words she said to me was, Emily, you will not stand before the Lord alone. Or you will stand before the Lord alone. Your friends will not be there. The things that you are holding on to, that you just think is so great, is not going to be there. And I remember thinking, Mom, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. You read scriptures going out the door. You was praying. I didn't want to hear that. I don't want to hear this either. And so I went off back to Ontario, and the fellow that I was engaged to was, I don't know. I wouldn't be living if I'd married him. I do know that. I would not be living. And so things went from bad to worse. I remember one time he threw a large vase at my fish tank. It had some rare fish in it, and it busted that, and the water all went. And I remember thinking, I wished he'd have thrown it at me. I just want my life, it's not that I wanted to die, but I just didn't think there was going to be anything that would come out of this relationship. But it would just gradually get worse and worse. So let's just get it over. And there was some violence. I remember going to work one time with handprints, around my neck. And my friend Bonnie Taliszczuk, she was a great girl. She was a Polish girl. She was married to a Polish man, Taliszczuk. And she used to go by Bonnie Smith. And she said, when I go to the dry cleaners, I don't want to have to spell my name. So I just say Bonnie Smith. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. That's a hard name to spell. Anyway, so I was going to come home and visit my family, because I had a new niece born in 1975, and I was going to leave Ontario. I was going to come and see my new niece. And before I did that, I didn't know how my life was going to unravel, and so I went to a fortune teller. Just goes from bad to worse, I'm telling you. And so I went to a fortune teller, and she sat there. I don't know how much it cost, because that was the spring of 1975. And I remember she was sitting there, and like any hope that I had, she was going to reveal it, right? We get so far from God. We get so far from God, and as young people, you can just get so out there. Who would ever think that would happen to me? And so I went to the fortune teller, and she sat there, and she told me that there were 2 roads. She said, I see 2 roads, and they're heading east, she said. So, okay. Now, mind you, I was planning on coming to see my niece, and I don't even know, I'm thinking, how does she know that? How does she know that? And she said, I see a road it's a difficult road, she said, and the other one, that's not a bad road. And I think I believe that she was seeing one with my fiance, the difficult road that would have continued to have been, and she probably was seeing the person, perhaps, that the best person that the enemy would have for you. I believe that God has somebody for you, and I believe the enemy has somebody for you, and the enemy's choice, it will destroy you. Anything. He's a liar, right? He's a liar, and he comes to kill, rob, and destroy. And we need to take that very seriously, that he does, and does do that to our youth, to our brothers and sisters, to those that we work with, wherever we go, right? Wherever we go. So she's telling me about this two roads, and it's all I remember. And then she said, but I see a third road, she said. I'm like, a third road? That's good. And, but she said, I can't see down that road. She said, I can't see down that road. I was like, I just paid whatever it was, $55, and you can see down that road? Don't, you know. And so I realized that she really didn't have too many answers for me. And so I continued on my way and came to New Brunswick. And I came with my fiance, actually. And I had a yellow Camaro. And I think that's why he wanted to come with me, because I had a yellow Camaro. Because it wasn't because he loved me, I'm sure. But anyways, and so we came, and we were here for 2 weeks, and he went with my brother to St. John, and I was left with my family who loved me, and I could just be myself. So we went to a sing at Ogie and Beatrice Scarabs. Maybe some of you know them. They just lived there in Charleston. And I remember they sang these beautiful hymns, and some of them were ones I knew, some weren't. And so one was, I wish they'd all been ready. Do you know that one? Guns and, how does it go? Guns will fill the life was, yes. And I remember, oh, that's my life. That's my life. How could that song, and I'm not ready. And it goes, I wish they all were ready. And I'm not ready. And I knew that I could not get ready in that setting. You know, there's times when people come to church. People come to church, they can't go home. They can't make a decision for the Lord and go home. Do you know what I mean? Because that day, that night, when I was, being so ministered to, that I wish they'd all been ready, and I knew that my family wanted that for me. But I wanted it, but I couldn't come to that place because I had to go home with this man that I was engaged to back to Ontario, and how would that all go? So I, God was just doing the work anyway. He does it anyway. And so that was in 75, and so I said to my sister when I was here, I said, I am not staying in Ontario. I'm not staying there. I'm going to come home. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to go home with him and be in that vehicle for 13 hours, and be able to, because people have control over you. He had control over me. And, I'm a person that kind of wants to please people. I don't want to disappoint my church family today. I didn't want to disappoint my mom or my dad. I didn't want to, but people disappoint you. And people offend you. And so anyway, my sister, she said, I'm going with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to make it. I think if she goes with me, I'll be able to get there. And I'll be able to stay away from him, go back to my apartment, get my things packed, and come home. But I knew home was not just a physical place. I knew it was a place that I could come and get back to the Lord. And so we drove 13 hours and in my yellow Camaro, and we just stopped and had, whatever we could grab while he was putting gas in the vehicle, because he was mad, because he was losing me, and he knew that. He knew that control had been broken. He never spoke a word to myself or my sister all the way there. So we got there, and I took my diamond off and I gave it back to him. And I've never seen him to this day. And anyway, so we got my job tied up, and I got a girl trained, and we're on our way back to New Brunswick. And So we get here, and I unload all my stuff. And that week, while I was here in '74, I went with the youth we played ball, and we just had fun things. We just had fun. And, they were all decent young people. I had lived a life that was different. I was different than they were. I had been exposed to so much. I loved being with them. I did. I wanted to be like them. And so the Lord gave me favor. The night I was playing ball with the youth, during that 2 weeks we were here in vacation in '74, and he had gone to St. John, we was playing ball. I used to play for the Riverside Pacers in London, Ontario. And we come in third in Ontario. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big deal. And so I could run, and I could catch a ball. And I had a yellow Camaro. so this young man that played ball, was very physical, physically fit, and that, he tagged me out at third base. And I remember that. I'm like, because I wanted to get home. Because I had hit the ball good enough that I could have got home. And he tagged me out on third base. But I remember really sliding into it and really knocking him off his feet, kind of thing, And so that was fine. And that young gentleman was Greg Swim, who I've been married to for 43 years now. But that day particular, we come home, my sister, and we came home from Ontario, and he worked for my sister's husband. So he was around in the yard quite a bit, and I remember thinking he was cute. I did think he was cute. And so anyway, but I never thought that I would ever be not good enough, but I was so soiled and so wasted that for a young man that had not done any of those things to be interested. But anyways, we did get together, and we talked a lot about things, and some of the destructive things that I had done. And I speak to the young girls here because I love my husband. I love him. I loved him then, and I love him more now. You know how it is as you grow older. But I always wished that I could have been pure when I stood at the altar and married him. We were pure to each other, but I had a past. And, when God brings us together with someone, those things just seem to work themselves out. And I'm getting ahead of my story because when we packed up and came home, my sister and I couldn't wait to get to church on Sunday because I just wanted to rededicate my life and get back where I had been. I never knew when I was 12 years old and jumping ahead to being 22, 10 years later, that I would be in such a mess that I was in. And I remember going to church that Sunday morning, and I could hardly wait to get there. Because all the other things, all the times I had been subjected to prayer, my mom's reading the scriptures, all of that, it was all there. It was all part of my spirit man, right? So it didn't take long when I walked to the altar that Sunday and Hazel Burlock was the pastor, and I remember taking 2 steps. They were the hardest 2 steps I ever took, and I was going to do them. And I got to the altar, and Hazel got down, and I prayed the sinner's prayer. It was so wonderful to be free. And my mom came up from the back, and she's now beside me, and it was just joyous. And so I came back to my sister's house, the one that went with me to Ontario. And I looked in the mirror, and I seen a brand new person. I seen a brand new person. I was not the old Emily. I was not the old Emily. And so Greg and I continued to, because I still thought he was cute, and he thought I was kind of special, I guess, I don't know. But anyways, and we were married in December. This was the summer of 75. Wow. We were married in December of 75. And we had our first child. Lindsay was born in 77. Jamie was born in 79. And we've had a couple of businesses. We're directors at Circle Square Ranch in Sussex. We went on to Ontario, and we went out west to Manitoba. Oh my gosh, I would never want to go back to Manitoba. But so, life has this way of unraveling things, right? But there is, in all of this, I realized that Malachi 3, verses 6, this is the King James Version. For I am the Lord, I change not. And as I've given you my testimony, there were so many changes in my life. I went from, oh my gosh, to oh my gosh, to oh my gosh. And so many changes. But the Bible says, I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, put away strange gods. Be clean. Change your garments. Mm-hmm. And that is what is required. That is what's required. And there is a passage of scripture, and I'll just share this with you because I love the story of the Shunammite woman. Do you know what I mean? In 2 Kings 4:8-37, and you can write it down, but read it when you go home. Read it in a couple of different versions because, anyways, my mom was a Shunammite woman. And there dwells within me the spirit of a Shunammite woman. And I see it in all of you. It is in all of you. The Shunammite woman, you can read it, she was a Christian lady. Her husband, but she had no children. And so Elijah, right? It was Elijah that came, and she prepared him a meal, and she seen that he was a godly man, and she looked after him. They built a prophet's chamber on the end of their house. I mean, they went all out for this man of God, and so he seen this, and he said, is there something that I can do for you? And Gehazi was Elijah's servant, right? And so he went and said, he wants to know. No, she said, I'm fine. She said, I just want to serve you. I just want to be a blessing to you. And so she continued to do what she wanted to do, or what she was doing, because she was contented. Life was good. And so the prophet said, go and tell her, because found out she had no children. Our daughter has no children. And I just inject this. Will you pray and believe with me for Lindsay, our daughter, to have a child? That's her and her husband's desire. And anyways, and so she was bearing this Shunammite woman. And so Elijah said to Gehazi, go tell her that in a year she'll have a son. And she'd already told him, there's nothing that I need. I'm happy and I'm contented. And so the prophet tells her this. So she has the son. And it wasn't too long the son died, right? You remember how it goes? And he died. And, well, you know what she did? She didn't talk to the ladies in the church. She didn't leave the church. She didn't do anything that was going to take any time. You know what she did? She went right after the prophet, Elijah, who said, a year from now, you will have a son. Are you kidding me? you came to me, I told you I didn't need anything. You prophesied to me a son, and now that son has died. I mean, that's big time disappointment, right? Big time. And so she went like right up to the field and got him, wherever they were going. And she brought him back, and you can read the rest of the story. But, you know, within us all is the spirit of a Shunammite woman. And if you have things that God has given you, that you believe are things that God has given you, you have every right to rise up, as a Shunammite woman did, and go after it and keep it, and know that the enemy is not going to take it from you. And you might have a bit of a battle. It might get rough. It might be, I'm sure when she went out into that field, you know, the time frame of it is not like it is today. She didn't jump in a vehicle, you know, but she was militant. Look, this is what you gave me, and look, this is where it is now, but look, it better not stay this way, right? It better not stay this way. And so we, as moms and as sisters and as nieces and, as women of the church, we need to take, you know, that militant spirit that I believe was how our mother was able to raise 6 children, birth 9, and you all have your story of difficult times that you've gone through. But my testimony to you, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why did I tell them all of this? It's because if it can happen to me, there's not a person out there that's in any worse condition than I was. I'm serious. There's nobody. And there's never a time that I see somebody and I think, God can do so much with you. If you only knew what God can do. And we don't always have, how long I've been, to tell them our story. But we need to know that good thing, when I was 12 years old and I gave my heart to the Lord, and the scriptures that Mom read and the prayers that she prayed, and if I can go 10 years in the total opposite direction, and then 2 steps, and that short distance to the altar, and God turn things around, and give me the life that I've had for the last 43 years, He is able to do anything. We serve an awesome, mighty God. Anyway, that is how the Lord has molded and shaped my life. There's lots of other monumental things that God has done. But as a mother, I just stand to you and give you just nuggets, you know, of like encouragement. And you hang on and you make sure you see your kids, you know, read scripture to them, pray with them. It doesn't matter if they're listening or they're not listening, because God's listening. He's listening, and He honors those things. And it may be sacrificial. I think Naomi said we all sacrifice, and we do, but you never ever sacrifice more than He has. He made the ultimate sacrifice, right? You know, there's none of us in here that wouldn't die for our children. It's none of us. You know, we don't have to. We don't have to, because He did. And if it had been up to my mom, if she could have drugged me out of some of those dark places that I was in, she would have been there, you bet she would have been. And I remember, because she came to the bowling alley that night, and she was so mad. And I'm like, Mom, I don't want my friends to see me, I'm so upset, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that's just a Shunammite woman right there. And she did take me home. I went home with her. I decided that she was never going to know where I was again. Oh boy, I didn't want her hauling me out of some of the places. It would have been good if she had them, but I didn't want her to just know that I was in those places. I love my mom. She's gone. She passed away in 2003. But I encourage you, just all as moms, family, whoever you're connected to realize that, you know what, the world needs Jesus. The world needs Jesus. I needed Jesus. I could not have got myself out of that mess. I couldn't have. And but it took complete surrender. And you know, there's been healing, because we think, oh well, it's just little happily ever after. No, it's not been happily ever after. We've had our battles, and some of them are because of my past. But God gave me a man that loves me. I do know that unconditionally. And he will honor us as we, you know, set our face towards him. And the farmer, you know, when he goes to plow the field, before they had all the computer technology, he would just set his goal on a tree, you know, that he knew was straight, and he would like take his tractor and his plow towards that tree. So that's what we all need to determine to do. We're going to take our life, and we're going to have Jesus as the center. And Naomi sang, Jesus in the center of it all. He was there before I got in the mess. He was there. He was in the center, and he's been on this side of my mess. But he's always been in the center, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we all need to do. And God is able, and he'll do great and mighty things through you. And I just love you all. Thank you for listening. If I said anything that was, Nicole C. Mullins, she said, if I said anything, charge it to my head, not my heart. That would be difficult for you to take or understand or whatever. But I kind of laid myself bare today, because you know what? The kingdom of God is at hand. And we need to know the journey that it takes to remain steadfast and to remain true and to not falter and not faint. This is not the time to faint or falter or, you know, messing around or whatever. You guys know the words that I'm trying to say. We need to be diligent. We need to be vigilant. And we need to be on guard of our household. Be on guard of your household. And you will change the world. You will change the world around you, because your kids will go and they'll change their world. And so it's worlds that end up being affected, right? We don't live in a little 2x2 frame. It's much bigger than that. Sometimes we want to, and sometimes I do. But then sometimes I think, oh God, I just wish my life was simpler. But it can be, and we just have to, okay, Lord, let me just cut out the things that aren't necessary. Let me focus on the things that are, because he's coming. He is coming. Amen. And we need to get serious about that very thing, get serious about our loved ones and the people that we work with, and whoever you touch, whoever lives you touch on a day-to-day basis. So in saying that, I just want to leave you that scripture, Malachi 3:6. I am the Lord, I change not there. I change not. And I love it how scripture is, because it says, I change not. Why did he have to say that? Because we change. We don't know. We don't know what it's like to not change. He declared it, I change not. We know that we change. So it's not always for the good. I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, put away strange gods. Be clean. Somebody's calling, it's lunchtime. Somebody's husband. Put away strange gods. Be clean. Change your garment. I love that. Can we do that today? Can we just stand? And Stephanie...